Thanks again for a fabulous speech. And as I'm looking at these questions, I think you're right. These are questions you should be asking us, and we shouldn't be asking you. But nonetheless, I'll give it a stab. So the first question concerns, I guess, the high number of extreme right-wing Israelis, and kind of the notion that, a lot of congressmen, especially Democratic ones, anytime they see a gun-toting American, are quick to push for greater gun reform and stuff like that, but they're pretty lenient in supporting gun-toting American settlers thousands of miles away in Israel. So the question is kind of, what do you make of that kind of hypocrisy, I guess?
Can you repeat, because I was...
Sure, sorry. Just the existence of right-wing Israelis, and how that's kind of, the right wing in the U.S. is often slandered, but not in Israel.
First of all, does it work?
Yeah.
Can I be heard? I would like just a personal sentence, because when I was on the podium, came in a very, very dear friend of mine, maybe the biggest musician who lives today, and the great, great, great friend of justice in the Middle East, Mr. Roger Waters, and I'm so grateful for him to be with us here. Now we understand why I wasn't so concentrated in the question, because I realized that Roger is with us, and this is, for me, has a very, very deep meaning. I do believe that the problem in Israel is not the right-wingers and not the extremists. The problem is the mainstream. The mainstream who choose to close his eyes. The mainstream who wants to feel so good about himself. The mainstream who wants to show the beautiful face of Israel, how gay-friendly we are, how we invented the cherry tomatoes, how we contributed so much to the international high-tech industry. Look how beautiful we are. We invented the kibbutz, and we have the most moral army in the world. Don't you dare to think that it can be the second moral army in the world, yeah? It's the most moral army in the world. Look at us. We are forced by those Arabs to do all those things. It's not our choice. We are the victims. We live in fear. We live in the trauma of the World War II. We live in the trauma of 48. We live in the trauma of the missiles and the trauma of the knife holders and the trauma of terror. And we are the happiest people in the world, number 11. After all those traumas and all those victimization, number 11 in the world in happiness standards. Very strange. But in any case, the mainstream who decides to close his eyes, to ignore what's happening in its backyard, this is the main problem. And then the right-wingers can do whatever they want. And right-wingers find common language with right-wingers anywhere else. And you have your right-wingers, and we have our right-wingers. And I don't know which one is worse than whom. But by the end of the day, and you can take it also to your elections, by the end of the day, I will always prefer an honest right-winger on a bluff of someone who wears a mask and discuss and claims that he is so liberal and so wonderful, and by the end of the day, he does the same. In the case of Israel, when you look what Labor did and what did the right-wingers do, Labor carries so much more responsibility for the occupation project. Peace Nobel Prize winner Shimon Peres did much more for the settlement project and to putting any possible obstacle to reaching any kind of justice in the Middle East than many right-wingers.
A couple of questions on your description of the West Bank as an apartheid system. One person wants to know why you don't extend that to Israel, given the violence in Israel, Jerusalem, and other places. And the second person would just like to know, after all of these years of apartheid and occupation, where is the hope?
First of all, I didn't say there is hope. Did I say? Did someone hear that I... You will never find me hopeful, never. But this is an exaggeration because there is some kind of hope. I had more hope 7 years ago when Obama came to power. Then I was really hopeful. This was maybe the last time that I was hopeful. But in many lost cases, or what seemed to be lost cases, like apartheid in South Africa, communist regime in Soviet Russia, the wall in East Berlin, it all happened within months, and nobody had foreseen it. I'm sure, Dale, that if I would have come here in the late 80s and tell you all this is going to fall within months, you would never invite me again, because this guy is out of his mind. And it happened. So first of all, there is room of hope because many times the unexpected does happen, and many times it happens when you don't expect it to happen. Like those huge trees, we are now in the cherry blossom season, but still you see from time to time a tree lies on the ground. It looks so healthy, so strong. What happened? And then you look inside it and you see it was totally rotten. And what is more rotten than the Israeli occupation? But answering the first part of the question about apartheid, listen, I always think that we should be very precise and not exaggerate because things are bad enough also without any exaggeration. Israel contains today 3 regimes. There is a kind of democracy for its Jewish citizens. There are cracks in this democracy, but still it is a democracy. I may be the best proof. My freedom of speech is, until today, and I don't take it for granted, is totally unlimited. There is the second regime, which is aimed at the Israeli-Palestinian citizens, which live in a democracy but are discriminated on any possible basis, but still gain formal civil rights. And then comes the third regime in the occupied territories, which can be defined but as an apartheid regime when 2 peoples share 1 piece of land, 1 people has all the rights in the world, the other one has no rights whatsoever. This is apartheid. And Israel is not yet an apartheid state. Israel has those 3 regimes, maybe the only country in the world, not only without borders, but also with 3 regimes. It goes toward becoming an apartheid state because it will not stay there. It doesn't stay only in the occupied territories. But right now, I would define Israel according to its 3 regimes and not 1 regime.
We're running out of time, but I'm going to squeeze in one last
I'm ready to spare 5
here.
minutes of my book signing.
Okay,
and
there we go. There's a question here about, do you think that Congress people genuinely are ignorant on what's happening there or willfully ignorant?
That's a question for you. I'm much more concerned how Israeli congressmen are ignorant, how Israeli legislators know nothing, how Israeli young people know nothing. But my guess is that, I didn't check it, but my guess is that most of the American legislators know nothing, and what they know is usually a product of a brainwash system full with lies and prejudice and stereotypes. We know how Muslims in general are treated today in the world and how they are perceived in the world. And Palestinians, I'm not sure that there are many Americans. I know by far that there are very few Israelis who perceive the Palestinians as equal human beings. Very, very few. Even those leftists, if you scratch under their skin, you will always find the belief that they're not exactly human beings like us. I think that I once wrote that we treat the Palestinians like animals, and I got so many complaints and threat letters from animal rights organizations that I have to be very careful, and I'm in great favor, obviously, of animal rights. But I think that most of the Israelis do not perceive the Palestinians as equal human beings, and maybe this is the core of the issue. And I believe that this is true also in this country. You know it better than me. And above all, there are so many lies spread, you know, when you read the media, the Israeli media, and many times also part of the American media. You read it and you can't believe about how many lies can be spread so easily. And how can you fight when you confront such a huge machinery, when basic facts are not only not known, but are totally twisted? And then you can't blame, by the way, public opinion. Because if they get this information, maybe they are right in their conclusions. Maybe with those animals you can never get to peace. Maybe the Palestinians deserve it. Maybe it's Palestinians' fault. Yeah, if we are in a situation in which when I write about these two brother and sister who were killed last Saturday in Gaza, two babies, and if I read then the talkbacks in Israel at least, for the basic journalistic mission just to tell the readers what happened there. And you get so much hatred only because you chose to portray two Palestinian innocent poor children as human beings. This is a crime in our country, and I believe that in this way America and Israel are really sharing the same values.
And just one final question here, combining two questions. Do you believe that Jewish nationalism can continue to safeguard the Jewish people peacefully while accepting human rights and dignity for Palestinians? And also just a question on the role of Palestinians within Israel and how their views are in all of this.
So in other words, you give me another 2 hours, because those are two new lectures. No problem. My flight is leaving only tomorrow evening. I have time. Look, it's really two very, very basic and complicated questions. Usually I say, when people say it's so complicated, I say, listen, the situation is much more simple than you think. It is black and white. And those who always portray it as a very complicated question want to say, let's not find a solution, because it is so complicated. Many things are very black and white. And justice is very black and white today between Israel and Palestine. Very, very black and white. But getting to those two questions, so first of all, we have to define if Jewishness is a religion or nationality or both, and what is stronger than what. Are we dealing with the Jewish people or the Jewish religion? What is Zionism? What is left of Zionism? Many times I'm asked if I'm Zionist, and I say, tell me, define me Zionism. I don't know what it is. If it means occupation, I'm not only not Zionist, I'm anti-Zionist, obviously, like any man of conscience in the world should be. But what does it mean to be Jewish today in Israel? The extreme Jewish are not the majority in Israel, but they are the only active group in the society. And when the mainstream is busy with having sushi and buying new jeeps, the extremists are the only ones who are ready to sacrifice something, and then you get what you get here. By the end of the day, this can be changed, and many times people speak about Jewish values and other things that I never understood what does it mean. I know what it means, global, universal values. I don't know what does it mean, Jewish values. And if Jewish values is the state of Israel today, so it has nothing to do with morality. So in any case, how will it live together? Look, we have to change basic beliefs. Nothing will move without changing those very, very basic beliefs. And this, someone has to lead it, and we don't see anyone who even tries to go for this change. And as long as this change will not take place, nothing will change, because as long as Israelis will continue with their racist attitude toward the Palestinians, and that's the core of the issue, nothing will change. And as long as Israel will be as strong as it is, and the Palestinians will be as divided, as weak as they are. Let's also forget they are in the weakest point ever. The world is forgetting them. The world is sick and tired of the whole conflict. The Arab world couldn't care less about them. And evil, I mean, they are really left with some people of conscience in the world, but we know how cheap is conscience and how unappreciated it is. To be a man of conscience today is almost in each society to be a traitor. To be a leftist in Israel is a curse today. So coming back to the second question about the Israeli Palestinians, they are really torn between their state and their people. And one should be sensitive enough to understand how torn they are between their people and their state. And anyone who asks them for more faithfulness, for more patriotism toward the state which depresses their people, again, doesn't treat them as normal human beings. Normal human beings care about their people. The Jewish people should be the first one to understand it. What did we do when Russian Jewry couldn't get out from Soviet Russia? The whole Jewish world was recruited for a campaign against Russia. Can an Israeli Palestinian not care about many times his direct cousin who lives half an hour away from his home, who was deported in 1948, who lost his land, who lost his dignity, whose life is really in the garbage? And let me tell you, and maybe this will be my last sentence because you're going to kick me out. I truly believe, and this comes back to the original issue, the original topic of today. I don't know how knowledgeable are the American legislators. I know one thing. There's not one single American legislator who can imagine himself what does it mean to live as a Palestinian under the occupation, under the Israeli occupation. He cannot imagine himself one day of humiliation, of life danger, of daily lack of hope, despair, not having any chance for anything, being humiliated really on a daily basis, and this is literally on a daily basis. Not knowing what does it mean to see the beaches which are half an hour away from your home, children who never saw those beaches. So there is not one single American legislator, and very few Israelis, if at all, who can imagine themselves what does it mean to be today a Palestinian under this brutal occupation. And as long as this is the case, the chances for change are so small, and therefore, if you could arrange a delegation of congressmen or any other who would come, I truly believe that once they will experience the occupation, once they will see how brutal it is, how total it is, how it penetrates to children's room and bedroom on a daily basis, how you don't have one day of dignity and one day of hope, even in peaceful times, and now we are not in a peaceful time. Once legislators will see it, I give them the credit that this will touch them. And maybe this by itself is an exaggeration. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We went a little over, but I think everyone could agree it was well worth it. There'll now be a 10-minute break or so. Gideon will be over in the exhibition hall signing books and answering more questions if you have them.
Thank you, Dave.